So there we go, gang. It's Friday lunchtime, 12:30, without fail. Avocado alive for some enjoyment while people have their lunch break on a Friday. Some people might be working from home on a lovely sunny Friday like this. I know I will be later on after I've done a few bits and bobs. But yeah, joined today by the Reading and surrounding area team to really focus on not just central Reading, but some of the surrounding pockets as well. So I'm looking forward to this live chat because we're going to get real specific and local. I'm looking forward to everyone's market updates. So Georgina, who is the avocado partner covering Woodley and Early. So if you're watching on someone else's page, you've not seen Georgina before, you're interested in that area, make sure you follow her socials. We've got Ryan from Ryan and Lauren, who's focusing in the Tilehurst area where he lives and West Reading. So kind of RG30, RG31. So if you're looking in and around that area, then make sure you check them out on their socials. You've got Matt, aka the Reading agent, Central Reading, really focusing on the Central Reading marketplace. Loads of great content. Matt's been digesting a lot of the recent monthly updates on his page. So if you're interested in Reading from a central point of view, check out his social pages because there's loads of great content on that. We've got Tristan from the landlord page. So Tristan's going to give us a little bit of an update on all things lettings and landlords, specifically in the Reading area, and a bit of an overview as well of what's going on there. There's a hell of a lot of landlords in Reading, hell of a lot of investors. So it's going to be an interesting chat there. And we've got Dan from Dan and Neil, who you will have seen on socials, I'm sure, because they've been covering the Reading patch for the most amount of time out of all of us. And Dan and Neil have really focused in the Shinfield area, Arborfield, Winnersh, and some of the other little pockets around there too. So got a great lineup today. Everyone good? Thumbs up?
All good.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. So first of all, I'm going to go to Matt, and Matt's going to give us a bit of an update on the Reading area, central Reading area. So if you want to kick off with your update, Matt, that would be absolutely fantastic. I'm going to be your control man on your slides because Matt's got some slides because he's funky like that. So there's your first one, Matt. I think it was labelled as number 1, so hopefully it's the one you want to kick off with.
Yeah, you got it. Cool. And I wasn't sure exactly how this would work. This is perfect. So as you said, I'm in central Reading, and this data here is just a look at the last 10 years average house prices in Reading Borough Council area. And I think I don't know if you guys have been the same, been so caught up in the COVID house price craziness. I was quite interested to look at this, take a step back and just see how quickly prices rose in the run up to kind of 2016, 17, 18, as you can see there. And then until 2020, things were kind of calming down a bit in Reading. And then, as with everywhere since 2020, prices have kind of jumped back up. But I thought this was quite interesting to see. And you'll see on the next slide in a minute, just to contrast with other areas, the growth in Reading kind of came before, and then the rest of the country has caught up since, which I thought was quite interesting. However, what you'll see in the next slide is the Wokingham prices should be there as well. Yeah, so we've got Wokingham here in red, and then Bracknell Forest area in yellow. And again, these are the local authority areas, so within those district councils. And then, of course, the thing that me and Georgina were talking about off air was that actually Wokingham prices, you'll see how they've had a bigger uptick since COVID. And of course, Wokingham Borough Council is Woodley and Early, which I think we would all regard as Reading. And they are typically the bigger houses, the places with gardens, i.e. the properties which have been popular since COVID, and the higher value properties too. So I just thought this was an interesting interesting fact, really, to just see the Reading prices kind of just less buoyant than the kind of surrounding areas.
I guess the positive on that, Matt, is if you're looking at it's quite small, so hopefully people can see it. But 10 years ago, it started just shy of 200 grand. And as it sits kind of from the most recent land registry data, it's just over 300 grand. So I guess although some of the other areas, maybe the curve looks a little bit larger from a Reading point of view, 110, 20 grand's worth of average house price increase is not bad for 10 years work, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Reading growth just came in that short spurt, but I'm kind of running up to 2016. But then I still think all of the reasons that Reading's attractive, the great travel links, all of the big businesses which are now here, those things are still here and they're not going anywhere. So I think for the future of Reading prices is really, it's really as strong as anywhere else, if not more so. And then the last slide here, just to again compare with some other areas in the country. We know that Wales has done really well since COVID, and then I just pulled out Birmingham as well, and you can see their growth has just been a little bit more steady year on year. So I just thought I'd bring that up.
Spike there, Matt. What is that? Is that the Oracle or something like that, where it goes off national curve, and you can see there's a bit of a spike in the middle of that graphic? Is that something to do with the Oracle? Maybe someone can.
So I think because I was wondering this, I think it was the hype about Crossrail. I know lots of people who were buying apartments. I spoke to lots of people since who were buying apartments when Crossrail was being done. And I think we forget that it was originally meant to open in December 2018. And it was going to be this new, Reading was going to become this business hub of people who were going to be commuting into London. I think there was just a lot of buying in the run up to 2016, which of course is when Brexit happened. So I just think that's what maybe we got that quick price rise there in the run up to 2016.
I see a lot of other people nodding their heads, so I think everyone's in agreement with you on that. And in terms of demand at the moment, what's the kind of classic two most popular types of properties that you've got buyers looking for in central Reading?
Yeah, so it's still the houses with gardens. So anything old property garden, super popular. I'm also seeing much more demand for flats than I did 12 months ago. So your 2-bedroom leasehold apartment, there are now buyers out there for those where perhaps 12 months ago they just weren't as hot, which is great for Reading. So there's loads of apartments. Apartments
are selling so well in and around the home counties at the moment, especially over the last sort of 12 months. Dan's talking about maybe 6 months ago saying how much demand there actually is with launch an apartment. So definitely seems to be the marketplace is really strong at the moment. That's great, Matt. Appreciate that, and thank you for putting the slides on. Teacher's pet on the slides. I don't think anyone else has got the slides. Ryan, coming straight over to you to kind of talk about West Reading, Tilehurst, that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
We've got a few people saying hello. So Chris has jumped in. Hello, Chris. Thanks for watching. We've got Ellen as well saying hello, Reading family. Good to see you. If you are watching, we're across all platforms: LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. So drop us a like, let us know we can hear you, and if you've got any questions for any of the panel, then obviously fire them in, we'll answer them live. But Ryan, how is the marketplace where you are?
Yeah, it's still rocking and rolling. Unfortunately I haven't got any graphs. I've just got stats to go through, but some interesting stats at that. So I've got some stats for April, but I've also got some stats of what's been happening the first 2 weeks of May, because I don't know, we'll talk about it probably a little more. I feel like there's been a possible slight change in the market of how quickly houses are selling. But stats-wise, across the two postcodes, RG30 and RG31, there was 123 new listings across those two postcodes in the month of April. Incredibly, 131 sales. So still more sales happening than listings taking place, which obviously we all know can't be sustainable forever, but that's pretty much the tale of the last 18 months, 2 years, isn't it, really? May, however, so far in RG31, there's been 18 new properties launched on Rightmove. 14 were brand new to the market, 4 had reductions. Out of those 18, though, only 1 sold so far. Now, obviously, we're only 2 weeks into the month, but in weeks and months gone by, the amount of properties that are uploaded automatically are sold or sold before marketing, probably 50% of them. But it seems at the moment things are taking just another week or two I spoke to a client yesterday who launched at the first week of May, or 3rd of May it was. Loads of viewings initially, but only got one offer from open house, which isn't a problem. In a normal market, that would be fine. But she's having to do a second weekend of viewings, which if you go back having 15 viewings on an open house, you'd expect to have multiple offers and get it sold. To have to go another round of viewings, I don't think we've seen for a long time. So I think pricing has reached, I wouldn't say the peak, when no one knows what's around the corner, but certainly on the evidence I'm seeing, things are starting to become a bit more stable, a bit more reasonable, and not accelerating. If your price is a little bit too much, you're not selling, first day.
Yeah.
So
I think other than downsizes, everyone will probably be quite happy with that. And when we spoke on the Buckinghamshire chat last night, Michael Childs pretty much echoed exactly what you just said. To be fair, Ryan, he's feeling that in the High Wycombe area as well. So yeah.
Same story for RG30. There was 45 new listings so far, or new activity on Rightmove this month so far. 36 brand new to the market, 9 were reduced. But again, out of that 45, only 4 sales agreed so far, which again paints the same picture. So I think clearly with everything at the moment, coming into those summer months, you've got to make sure your pricing is absolutely spot on. I don't think it's a case where you can stick it up for 10, 15, 25 grand more. It's got to be bang on the money to get the interest and get sold in the first fortnight. Yeah.
And I think people will they'll still pay the right money.
Absolutely.
For a property. If a property's worth 410 and you put it on at 400, I still think there's a great opportunity of getting 410, 415, 420 with the right demand. But if you go at 425, you might not get the interest. You might end up reducing it to 400 down the line, and then you're kind of stuck. So it all comes down to that marketing quality as well. I think if prices are starting to hit their peak, or we're starting to just see the top of that peak around the corner, then the quality of marketing becomes really important, where there's a bit of slapdash out there, and I think that will change. We've got a question coming for you, Ryan, from Michaela. Had a question for Ryan, if possible. How would I go about selling my current house and moving to Tilehurst? Is it now a good time to do that? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michaela. The honest answer is it's a great time to do it, of course. It's about marrying things up. So best thing you can do, you can register for your search on our own website at the moment. So you get all the instant alerts for new properties. Make sure you're following myself and Lauren on our Facebook and Instagram page, and obviously everyone else as well. But feel free to drop me a message direct, and I'll be more than happy to have a chat with you about your timescales and sort of tailor the service around what your needs are. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think there's a good opportunity between now and probably the kids breaking up for summer holidays to take advantage of good weather, and also take advantage of the fact that most people are now at home. Normal life has resumed after the most recent sort of term break, and it's normally a pretty active month in May and June. We found historically.
Obviously, photos and videos look so much better in the sun as well, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you very much for that update. It's great to get an honest insight as well, rather than just an agent blabbling on that everything's the same as it has been for the last 20 years. It's good to hear. Georgina, Woodley, early. How are you finding things? I know off camera you said you've had a busy morning with completions, and you've had the drone up in the air, flying that around estates and stuff. So
nearly crashing it into the other side of a house, but it's all right. I lost my concentration for a moment, but no, it's great to have my own one finally. So yeah, I'm glad to be doing that. With Woodley, it just seems to be ever popular, and it's I've got some house prices for sort of Woodley and RG6 as well. So that's sort of early. So with Woodley in the last year, the average house price was 412,000. And most of them were semi-detached houses that went for sort of 422, which it seems crazy high, really, in my opinion. And then detached had an average of 549,000. And then in RG6, so the average was 431, so a bit higher than Woodley, which has generally been the case over the years. But most of them were detached, which obviously is why that is slightly higher as well. And those were at 553,000. And the average price for a semi-detached is 438,000. But I think a lot of that will be the school catchment, because you've got Maiden Early, which is ever popular with people. So it does push the prices up that little bit to make sure that people are within that catchment. Yeah, I mean, just looking at Rightmove today, there's sort of 60 houses on the market in Woodley at the moment. So there's definitely a lot more choice than there was this time last year. So I think certain people are a bit hesitant to put their property on the market because they haven't seen what they want to buy. And actually, you've got to do it's a chicken and egg situation where you've got to go for it. In my opinion, obviously, I would say that. Then.
I think we might have seen. I saw the data for March released by Zoopla last month, and it showed 40% less property on the market in comparison to a 5-year average. And it would be quite interesting to see what that looks like in 8 weeks' time, because it does feel like there's more coming to the market. Zoopla said there was, I think, 6% more properties coming to the market now than an average over the last 5 years. There's still a huge shortage in comparison to the most recent 5 years, but in the most recent 5 months, maybe there's a few more there, which is great because there's a lot of open chains at the moment. There's a lot of people looking for properties, a lot of people not putting their house on the market because they want to find a property first. So hopefully with a bit more option out there, people will be able to do what they need. What would be the golden ticket listing for you, Georgina? If you've got a list of 10 people and you could sell a house 10 times over, what would be that paint the picture of what that perfect house looks like?
I'm glad you asked, because I've got 3 or 4 people at the moment who are absolutely desperate for 4-bedroom detached in and around the sort of 550 mark. And I'm not even kidding. There's a huge shortage for me personally in what there's ones lower than that and higher than that, but in that sort of area, nothing. But I've got the buyers there that are ready to go. So yeah, anybody who is looking to sell, yeah, I've got the buyers for you straight away.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. Good to know. I didn't ask you, Ryan, that question actually, so I'll sort of ping back to you quickly. What's the most in-demand property for your buyer list at the moment in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so it's always 2 conflicting properties across the postcodes, literally next to each other. But RG30 is Victorian terraces. Obviously, it's like 2/3 of the market, but there's so many people looking for sort of good quality 2 or 3 bed terraces from sort of 280 up to 325, 330. So the buyers are there. RG31, on the other hand, it's the 3-bed semi family markets. People moving for the schools, whether that be primary or secondary. So again, budgets up to 450 normally. They're the sort of buyers we'll be looking for. And people, if they're looking to sell, we've got buyers literally coming out of our ears ready for houses like that.
Good. Okay. Well, if you've got one of those properties, definitely drop Ryan a DM, and I'm sure he'll be able to set you up with. Even if people are thinking they're not ready to put their house on Rightmove and Zoopla, there's a lot of stuff that we can do from socials that keeps it almost off portals, so it's not in the public's eye as such. And we do a lot of our business that way. In fact, I think we would do around 30-35% of our business that way. So if you want to keep things a bit more private, a bit more exclusive, not quite ready to give it to a big corporate agent and fire it all over the internet, then we'll help you out there. Dan, coming to you. How is Shinfield, Arborfield, Winnersh and those sort of neck of the woods? How's things over in your area?
Do you know what? Still, from my point of view, really positive. Every property that we seem to list is still getting a lot of interest. But I think it echoes what Ryan was saying about pricing, because there are certain properties that still stick and not moving, and that's because it's the pricing is too high, and it's probably down to the fact that things are slightly shifting with affordability of mortgages and things like that. We're starting to have a lot of talk about that now. I know firsthand, so I'm going through it myself with a mortgage at the moment, and I found a few bits on mine that I was unaware of, and it just changes things slightly. So I think pricing is going to be really important, but if you get it right, you'll sell quickly. But in Shinfield, for example, I was looking at a few bits really interesting. If you drive around the areas where we are, and I'm sure everyone can say a similar thing, there's new builds still going up everywhere, right? There's a lot of new build properties still going up. In Shinfield parish areas, about 3,000 in total that will be built and finished. And this area is just getting bigger and bigger in a really positive way. 2 new schools, lots of new shops, and there's still a lot of people there who want to move to the area. So I don't see the demand for houses slowing for that reason. I just think prices will get a little bit more difficult, maybe over the next 6 months, where affordability is more challenging.
It'd be interesting to see with that extra new home supply, how new build sites often get a lot of people moving, because you see a lot of local upsizers, downsizers, and people moving as first-time buyers out of parents' home into the local development is quite common, isn't it? So it seems like that area, specifically Shinfield, is going to be super active. What about Arborfield, with obviously the garrison changes and things like that? How's that development sort of kicking off over that way?
Yeah, really, really positive. In fact, I'll give you a bit of an example. So I've been selling properties on the Arborfield Garrison for feels like forever, for years. If I can picture going back, say, 6 years ago, you were probably buying one of the 2-bed Garrison houses for about 250,000. And that was a price they sort of reached and would struggle to push above. Last year, so about February last year, we sold one at 300,000, which is a really big increase. This year, we've sold 3 at over 325, reaching 335,000. So you can see the increase over the last 12 months has been huge in that area. And that's because of the development. You've got the Bowhunt School is nearby. You've got the new shop that's there, the co-op in the middle. You've also got, I didn't know if you know this, but on the Arborfield development, they've got a really nice pub that's being built as a community central in the middle there. It should be done in the next 18 months. So there's a lot going on in that location. And last week, it's having a knock-on effect with all the types of properties as well. So last weekend, we got 2 apartments under offer, one of them within 4 days. And we'd go back to apartments maybe a year and a half ago, a bit more challenging. But actually, if they're in the right location and priced right, people can't wait to get there. So Arborfield's really up and coming, probably quite similar to where Shinfield is, really.
Interesting stuff. A lot of new build stuff, a lot of activity in your area from that basis. And new builds kind of, I guess I asked the golden question to you as well, Dan. If you were looking in your patch and you had a particular property you could sell 10 of every day for 10 days, what would that property look like?
Everything. Well, do you know, 4-bed detached are always going to be popular, but 3-bed semis with a garage that are reasonably priced for families at the moment that I can't hold on to them. So put one for sale in Winnersh about 4 days ago, and I've got about 45 inquiries on it of good buyers. So I know there's 45 red hot buyers there that want to buy something like that. I'm only going to be able to show about 15, 16 people that are qualified. I won't be able to show everybody. So yeah, if I had 5 more of those, I'd sell them. So they're probably the hottest commodity. People trying to get that sort of house, that sort of medium-sized family home in good areas with schools.
Sounds good. So again, if you're listening, you've got one of those properties, you're thinking of moving at some point this year, and you would like someone to help you on that basis without maybe slapping it all over the place and doing a 1 or a 2 off set of viewings, then Dan's the man to speak to on that basis. Check out Dan and Neil Estate Agents, and they'll definitely be able to help you out. Will jumped in and said, sorry, go on, yeah.
I was going to pass a bit of advice on around that as well quickly. What I think needs to happen is, it looks like that confidence is coming back. So I've got about 4 or 5 people in the Winnersh area now looking to list their property. People think they won't list because they can't find something. But the more people who hold back, the property they would list, somebody else would then go and buy. So if you get that confidence and get it on the market and everybody else does the same thing, there will be people to move around. I've started to see that. I've had about 4 or 5 conversations behind the scenes with sellers who don't want to go fully on the market yet, but we've got everything ready and now they're going on. And I've started to build chains of people within an area that want to move. So just have those conversations, because it will give people options of where to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because the public don't realise we might value a property for someone that's not planning to move for 10 months, 12 months, but it's not to say they wouldn't accept a viewing tomorrow. And more for them, it's around the element of having the property ready. They might want to paint a wall. They might want to clear a little bit of the garden out. They might have a holiday booked in 6 weeks' time, or they might be thinking around school terms and stuff like that. So it just might not be convenient for them to have viewings every evening or a full-on open house, but it doesn't mean they might not accept a local viewing from you, and not on market client that lives around the corner that they know would be emotionally their best buyer. And I think we wrote a blog on it maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, which said cash is no longer king. And what we put in the small print behind that is actually flexibility of a buyer is now the king of buyers, or the queen of buyers, if you like. So if you're a flexible buyer, a local person, you're connected to the area, emotionally attached, then you're the type of buyer that's going to potentially get that off-market property. So yeah, great point, Dan. Tristan, coming to you, give us a bit of an overview from a rental perspective for the tenants and landlords listening, or anyone that might be thinking of actually breaking the chain, selling their property, going into rented to then have a little bit more time to find. How is the rental market at the moment? Is there any changes in legislation that people should be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. Market's been really positive for me. This month's probably one of the busiest months I've had in probably the last 6. Lots of move-ins, which is obviously great news. Once again, we are seeing obviously lack of supply still, but I'll go through that in a second. But I mean, the first sort of positive that I've seen, that rents across the UK have gone up 10% in the last 24 months. And the average has now gone up to 1,495 per calendar month, which is obvious it was going to happen with the massive amount of shortage of properties and increased demand. So it's obviously good to see. But last month alone went up 1% in every region apart from in the Northwest. And the reason I think they're still going to continue to go up is they're actually down on new rental listings by 28% over the last 3-year comparison. So it just shows the lack of stock that's coming to market, and the increased demand of over 50% is literally you're having multiple offers on properties. So I predict it to continue going up, and I don't expect it to sort of dip anytime soon, in my opinion, especially with the busier months coming and people not having to find. And then the other positive is void periods. They've reduced again. They're averaging around 18 days, which is substantially lower than it normally is. It's been fluctuating for the last sort of 18 months or so, anywhere between sort of 17 and 21 days. But yeah, it's down at 17 days now, which is great news. Couple of obviously things to bear in mind that's going to be coming into effect. There will be an update of the carbon monoxide alarm to do with smoke alarms and carbon monoxide from the 2015 Act. So just obviously bear that in mind. And then obviously we've got the Levelling Up white paper that's still ongoing. The drafts are on there. But there's going to be some very big changes to the industry that will obviously affect many people, but any new landlords in the market need to be aware of it as well. And this will be like the Section 21 notices being abolished, the update of the Section 8 notice, EPC changes, the decent home standards. There's lots of detailed information there, which I won't bore you on now, but we've got many blogs on the website. And obviously, as and when they come into confirmed dates, then we will let you know accordingly.
Okay, mate. Well, thank you for not boring us with the white paper reports. Appreciate that. But it's interesting to know that void periods are down. That's always a new landlord or an accidental landlord's concern, is that the property is going to be left empty and they're going to be paying a mortgage. And obviously, if that's reduced down to just 17 days as a national average, I'm sure it's much lower in the home counties. And that's good news for everyone involved as well. So just a couple of things then. I know Matt mentioned Crossrail, and it was it's a topic of point that's been going around for the last decade, but what's the impact of that? Ryan, I'll come to you kind of first, just from a Crossrail perspective, what's the impact that you think, that will and has had on the local market?
I think Matt's point was spot on. I remember I was literally working in Central Reading from 2012 through to the 2016, 2017 market. So it had full effect. And the sharp rises in the prices in 2015 was down to that, all the smokes and mirrors, as it were, regarding Crossrail, because it just didn't happen. But I do think once it's fully operational, don't get me wrong, our transport links are already fantastic to London, which is why it's such a hot spot to come to the area. But I think with the Crossrail finally happening, to be able to get into Bank on one train, it's going to be fantastic. And I think it will still continue to maintain or keep our prices higher because of those people realising London market or affluent areas around London, they can come out to Reading and still get back into where they work probably quicker than where they currently are, which is a good thing. So I think it's going to still be positive. Whether we see price increases go up any further, who knows? But I think it's only going to be a positive for the area finally.
Yeah, it's a good point on the transport links, because Georgina, it's a phenomenal place to live for access to anything. You can be in London in 23 minutes or whatever the Paddington line is now. So if you want to go to the West End and watch a show on a Friday evening, you can get there, get back as easy as you can to anywhere in reality. And then with the A329M obviously sat there, the local access is fantastic. And then when you've got the M4 just sat there as well, depending on where you want to go and what direction, it's very easy. And if you need to get up to the Midlands, you can jump straight on any sort of local motorway from that perspective as well. So it is a great part of it. Is that one of the big pulls you find buyers moving out of the area to the Reading area is for that reason, or is it schools, or is it work? What's the main reason you find people from out of area coming to the Reading location?
I mean, there's obviously a lot of businesses that are in and around Reading. Obviously, all the business parks, which attracts people. But yeah, I think from my perspective, the early train station is huge. Obviously, that does serve quite a few of the Woodley residents as well, because you've got the footbridge over. So yeah, it's huge. It's actually why my parents moved out. They moved out of London 30 odd something years ago, before I was born, and it was purely early train station. They wanted walking distance, and that we've always stayed in the area, because my dad commuted back into London. So I've seen more and more London buyers that are coming out, and one of their sort of criteria is easy access back into, to be able to get back into the office when they go in. Nowadays, it's sort of 1 or 2 days a week for a lot of people, but they still need that easy access without having to drive, because it's not necessarily the easiest drive to get back into London once you're there. So, but no, the connections are great. There's some amazing schools. Yeah, we're really lucky. I love living here. I don't ever want to leave. So, maybe that's just me, but no, for other people, it's really popular for that. And you've also got green space as well. It's not like we're closed in with built up or anything. There's loads of things to explore, that you can walk to from either location. So yeah, nice.
You are flying the Reading flag high, Georgina.
I love Reading, not just the football,
and a local Reading fan as well.
Yeah. I'm so glad we've got another proper loyal Royal as well, so welcome, Matt.
I was going to say, you're not alone there now. I'm here to
yay.
Back someone's got support, haven't they?
Matt, did you throw a drone up over the stadium the other day? Were you taking drone photos?
Well, my drone app reminded me that the Majeski Stadium is a no-fly zone. I was just far enough away to get a shot. But yeah, that was me.
It was a nice photo, to be fair. I did see it, and I thought, I wonder if you're actually allowed to fly over that. If so, you could actually stream a game live from the air to Facebook, which would be pretty cool. But hey ho. What other things, Dan? You said obviously 3,500 properties getting built in and around the area. I think you mentioned 2 schools. Are they primary schools or primary and secondary, or what else is going to be built up?
I actually had it up on here a moment ago. I think I've lost it now, but yeah, you've got the Older Grove Primary School, for example, that's being built, which is really popular. They've got a community centre all around it now in Shinfield. So I know we've plugged it a few times. We've got Robin's Nest, for example, that's opened up there now. Is starting to become a real community feel. And Shinfield really needed that. It always felt like a community, but now so it feels like everyone's even more coming together in that middle there where the green is. And yeah, it's a really nice place to be. But
it's moving. Would you say it's moving away from a housing estate with more now of a community feel of somewhere to live?
It feels more like that. It feels more like, I wouldn't say village because it's too big and there's too much going on. But yeah, certainly more like that. And so is Arborfield, because if you go back 10 years ago with Arborfield, it was sort of a through bit with houses there, and it was sort of like you go through Arborfield to get to Wokingham, or you go through Arborfield to get to Reading, or wherever it may be. But that's also got that hub feel now to it. So both sort of the locations really feel like they've become into their own. Hence why house prices are going to go up, because it's desirable to live there.
Can I just add to the new build bit, Dan, just from a rental perspective?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's seen the podcast recently, but we spoke about new homes. And if you are living in a new home now, or you're thinking about buying potentially for a buy to let, you can achieve up to 41% more in rent with a new home as well. So the benefits of having the community, like you said, but also having the additional rent, the less like maintenance cost because it's a brand new build, it's definitely recommended. And we see it, we get so much demand for new builds now, whereas if you go back 5-6 years ago, it was a totally different marketplace. So I highly recommend new builds, especially if there's so many going up.
We've had quite a few of them, haven't we, Tristan, in and around sort of Shinfield Meadows, and the new one, brand new one off of Cutbush Lane, things like that. They're very popular, aren't they?
Definitely, and they go so quickly as well.
Matt, Central Reading, kind of from your point of view, it's always been a lively place, Central Reading to live, and you talk about community, but you just talk about lifestyle more so when you go central. What would you say has changed over the last 2 years about Central Reading? Is it back to where it was pre-COVID now, with hustle and bustle, coffee shops, pubs, maybe not nightclubs on a Friday or a Saturday, but just general kind of living? Is it as busy as it was before on a Saturday now at the shops? And is it back to its normality, or is it still a little bit vague in comparison to where it was before?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it absolutely is. It was really strange in like 2020 COVID to go into the town and just see how quiet it was. But I would say it's absolutely back to where it was pre-COVID, just in terms of hustle and bustle on the high street, like people going out doing things. And as you say, that real like central kind of town centre, city living sort of vibe is very much there.
Because that's great. I think that's vital for the economy, and it's vital for the surrounding estates and villages that everyone else covers. It makes a massive difference, I think, and it's actually been, I would say, one of the sort of larger town cities. It's been one of the areas that has really survived quite well, actually, over the COVID period, because some places are ghost towns still now. And Reading, I know I popped into the Oracle recently just for a bit of sort of weekend lunch, if you like, and it seemed as hectic as it's ever been. Talking mortgages, more around affordability and rate changes, and let's just touch on that, because when we were talking in December on these live chats, we just couldn't believe how low rates were. Rates are still super low, but what we have found is that the first time buyer mortgages, so more than 10% deposit mortgages, they've held very well. They haven't really increased that much, but some of the other ones are the rates that have increased since the base rates changed. Dan, affordability, I know you're going through the mortgage process of sort of selling and buying at the moment. How's that process working out for you?
It's more difficult than you think on the face of it. So the first thing is make sure you get somebody to help you do it, an expert, which I'm lucky I've got. But affordability is becoming more difficult, and there's a reason for it, because of cost of living and so forth, all these different reasons. Lenders are changing their affordability criteria quite quickly. So on the face of you getting a decision in principle, if you did one yourself based on your earnings, so actually going through what you need, it may be quite a big difference in terms of what you're able to borrow. And I think I've been speaking to quite a few clients about it now. My concern is where prices may suffer now, or start to level off. If people are thinking about fixing in for 2 or 3 years, and the cost of living continues to rise, which is probably going to over the next 2 or 3 years to get us out of where we are. Well, actually, if they're stretching themselves to the max capacity to borrow, and their circumstances in terms of earning more money doesn't change in 2 years' time, they're going to struggle to remortgage and keep a similar rate, because the rates are going to have gone up. So I think people naturally might start to think, well, I'll just go a little bit within my budget in terms of what I may offer to give myself a bit of security 2, 3, 4 years down the line. People need to be wise about that. I mean, for me, the one bit of advice I give as well, I'm epic at checking my bills, what I pay, how I do it. I've got really good at it. Make sure my credit score is good. I missed, though, 2 payments to Thames Water. I didn't realise. By like a couple of days, my direct debit wasn't set up properly and messed up. It actually might affect me in terms of who I'm lending with. It means I get a higher rate. So just people out there who are listening now, just make sure you don't miss anything, even if you think you're good at it. Just check it all, because I balls up. So
it's easily done, isn't it? When you're living a hectic life, we're all probably time poor at the moment. In reality, that sort of age bracket that we all sit on this live chat is really difficult to keep up with the little bits and bobs like that. It's easy to just miss them or see it and think, I'll deal with that later, and then before you know it, it's way gone. back somewhere else. So yeah, it's a great point, well raised. And I think I keep banging on about it. I've probably been saying it for 12 months now, but today is the cheapest day to buy a property. And I still believe that's the case, because I do think rates will slightly go up over the rest of the year. Prices will still, whether they go up 10% over the next 12 months or 2 or 3%, it's going to be somewhere in between that. So they're going to go up. They're not going to go down, in my view. So today is still the cheapest day to buy a property. We've got Dom. Dom's one of the mortgage advisors that a few of the Avocado partners work with. Just won an award, actually, I believe. I saw in his social media. So
Dom is amazing.
Congratulations to Dom and his business partner for picking up a nice award there. He said Nationwide announced a 6.5 multiplier on a like-for-like remortgage to help people that might be trapped as a result of cost of living. Who knows how long they'll keep that up for, and which other lenders will follow suit. So effectively, that's every now and then a lender comes in and makes a big statement, and it's sometimes a rate, it's sometimes a first-time buyer deal, it's sometimes a remortgage product, sometimes it's for buy-to-let. They just stretch the criteria in a way of almost saying, this is something we're interested in trying, and they normally do a small amount of products and then they pull it and sort of review the data. This is quite interesting because really we're talking 4.5, maybe 5 times multiples as a sort of average at the moment, somewhere around that 5 for maybe a couple. But 6.5 is a fair old chunk. I mean, I think we saw a few crazy ones come in last year, but that from Nationwide, which is a very reputable mortgage lender, is quite interesting. Dan?
It probably fits in with what I was just saying. So they're obviously predicting or seeing that actually in 2-3 years' time, when fixed mortgage rates come up, people that have stretched themselves and the cost of living has gone up, they realise that people are going to be in a sticky situation. So they're saying, actually, we'll help you out with a like-for-like mortgage with us if you stay with us, to give you, to cover that extra rising cost. So it's probably a good thing. Is it a really good thing? Hopefully other lenders follow. Because that is the challenge, isn't it? People have gone out and bought properties in the last 12 months, and there's been bidding wars and gone to the max they can spend, and then suddenly cost of living's gone up by 3 times. They can't afford to fill the car with fuel. And then they go, remortgage has gone up by 2% in 3 years' time. They're like, shit. Sorry, French. But yeah, it's real, isn't it? So I think it's a really good thing about potentially them looking at doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, ships have got all sorts of things to do with it, but we're not too far from the sea, are we, Dan? So in terms of that, just to give people perspective, because, Ryan was talking about semis and Matt was talking about all sorts of different terrace properties. Georgina was talking about family homes and Tristan was talking about new builds. But let's just say an average mortgage of 350,000 with maybe 100k deposit, 150k deposit. Let's just use that as a round number. Off the top of my head, it's a multiplier, a difference of having to earn 70 grand a year versus 55, 58, something like that. So that's quite a big difference for people that are earning X or showing what they're earning. It puts a new bracket of lending out there. And Dom agrees with part of what Dan said. Remortgage only and no capital raising. So if there's people out there at the moment, that's of interest. I would love to just go round the panel quickly. If we were to give a tip for a first-time seller thinking of moving, and Tristan, on yours, a first-time landlord rather than a first-time seller, for your local area, what would be the one golden tip you would give to a first-time seller looking to move in the next 4 or 5 months? And I'll start with yourself, Georgina, as you're next to me. What would be the one piece of advice that you would give to that first-time seller? So they're just about to do something they've never done, which is probably to sell and buy, which is very different to just buying.
It is, yeah. And people give a lot of almost help to first-time buyers, but not so much in the way of first-time sellers. And it is a big deal. My advice, if at all possible, is to go chain-free if you can. It just means that your house is going to be more desirable anyway. At the moment, people really want to know what the seller's positions are, and being able to free yourself up, it then puts you in an amazing position to go on and buy your next property. So even if it's even if you can just offer the possibility of it, then that could, be really great. If you then find something which is a short chain and it all ties in anyway, then you can carry on with it. But if you can move in with family or rent for a little while, then that's my top tip initially.
Go chain free. And I was at a presentation yesterday with Tristan, and we said to property investors that whether people like it or not at the moment, a no chain sale is more valuable than the neighbour in a chain. And that's the fact of the market that we sit in. Someone will pay more for a no chain sale at the moment, especially a family home, than they will do for one that's in a chain. Great tip. For those that can do it, obviously not everyone can, but for those that can, it's a good tip. Ryan, what would you say would be your golden piece of advice for people in the sort of Tilehurst, West Reading area? What would you say for a first
I think the biggest thing is just need to educate yourselves before you start on the path of moving house. And what I mean by that is get a feel for what prices are doing, check what your local estate agents are doing. We talked about, some in the area prices getting a little bit more tight. Marketing is going to be key to getting houses sold. So you want to make sure you just do your research on who you want to work with before, and likewise the area you want to move to as well. So that's probably the best bit of advice. Just get yourself prepared, and then we'll be there every step of the way to help you through it.
Yeah, that power team as a first-time seller is so important, that you've got a mortgage advisor that you can communicate with. If you go directly to the bank, you're going to spend a lot of time on hold trying to speak to someone. If you talk to a really good mortgage advisor that you've got their mobile contact number with, then that's going to make the job easier. Same applies for the estate agent. If you use an estate agent that's single point of contact, much like we are, you're going to be in a position where you can WhatsApp them on a Friday afternoon or a Sunday morning when you've got an urgent question that you need an answer to. And chances are within an hour or so or quicker, they're going to reply to you. Whereas a normal corporate estate agent, you're not going to speak to anyone on Sunday, and you're going to struggle to speak to anyone other than a call centre throughout a working day. Makes a massive difference. And the solicitor is so important. If you're a first-time buyer trying to save pennies, you're buying a straightforward freehold, you might be able to get away with just using a standard conveyancer and save a couple of £100. I wouldn't advise it, but you could probably get away with it as a first-time buyer. But when you've got a transaction you're selling and a transaction you're buying, if you use a low-ranked, cheap conveyancer, you will regret that hugely. So, yeah, great point, Ryan, on getting the power team in play. Matt, what would you say is your biggest tip to a first-time seller? I know you're active on TikTok with these, so I've seen a few of them. So you got a pick of any of your TikTok tips that you could give here?
Yeah, I think, well, the power team point is great, and the solicitor point especially, because if you haven't sold before and you've only bought, then just you need your solicitor even more to be on your side when you sell. So just really important to think of that in advance. I think the tip I would give is you only get one chance to make a first impression. I think we're all noticing more price reductions going on in the market. So just be really sure to price attractively, and that will make everything much easier going forward. Because it can be tempting, I think, when you see the headlines for prices going up, to just add on more money. But that's not the case. Pricing attractively will make the sale much more stressful, much more stress-free.
Yeah, I think also when you price correctly, you have a bigger choice of buyer.
Absolutely.
And maybe £5,000 is a lot of money, and it is. But if you're selling and you're buying that dream family home and there's not many of them available, and you go for the £5,000 more for the buyer that's not flexible, and you lose that property, that £5,000 on a mortgage is not a lot of money per month, or the mortgage would probably be an extra £3,500 to potentially risk losing that for the right buyer. That's the key part of pricing rightly. You get the choice of the buyer, and that's what you want. Same for a landlord. You want a choice of tenant, not just the price, because that's the difference between the transaction going smoothly or not. And just over the back of your shoulder, got one of the new boards there, Matt, by the looks of it, for those that have seen our new boards in and around.
Yeah,
there's Matt Barrow's one. Yeah, love that.
It took away from the girly mirror, so I thought I'd have that.
Yeah, so you can do your makeup and then go straight live, which is great. Yeah. And the makeup's looking good. Tristan, first time landlord, what would be your single piece of advice that you would give?
Yeah, mine's easier said than done, but they need to take their emotional attachment away from the property, especially if they reside in it, it's their family home, and see it as a business transaction, because ultimately someone's going to live in that home. So you just need to try and take that emotional attachment and just see it as a business transaction thereon. And like I said, it's so easier said than done, but it's something that you need to do.
Yeah. So look at it logically, prepare, plan, make sure you make the right decision. Don't hesitate on it, but that helps normally when you take the emotions out of it, is not to hesitate and go and action it effectively. So yeah, good advice. Dan, first, sorry to come to you last on this, but first time seller tip, what have you got that's not been said already?
Be aware of timeframes and timescales. So I think a lot of first-time buyers have probably bought new builds. So their experience of buying something is relatively simple, straightforward, closed chain, paperwork done for you, that sort of stuff. It actually takes a lot longer than you think. So I was speaking to somebody earlier on today, first time selling, thinking I want to move by December, going to put their property on the market start of October. I was like, this won't happen. So actually the average transaction with us, probably from listing it to then getting it through to exchange, it can be anything from 12 to 14 weeks from the point of draft contracts. And it could take you 1 week to sell, it could take you 4. So it could be like a 5-month period. If you're in a chain, it's longer. So if you're thinking of selling as a first time seller and you want to get things done by, say, the end of this year, you need to be on the market in the next 3-4 weeks to make that happen. Otherwise, you're looking at 2023. And it seems crazy to speak about that in May, but you need to be aware of timeframes.
We all thought that the transactions were taking such a slow period of time legally because solicitors were so backlogged because of the stamp duty threshold. The stamp duty threshold, finished ages ago, and we've still got that same problem that transactions are taking so long. And when you add in finding on top of that, it's a really fair point, because it might take you 3, 4, 5 months to find, and it might take the same to go through, and that's a year period. So yeah, great point. If you want to be in your new house for Christmas, get your skates on and get rocking and rolling. And I guess it would be wrong for me to not give a tip, but my tip would be, if you're thinking of selling in the Reading area, the surrounding Reading areas, much like here, use an avocado partner. That would be as simple as I would leave it, is use one of the people in this panel to help make it as stress-free and as easy as possible, whether it's drones, social media marketing, off-market viewings, or just the fact that you want to speak to someone via WhatsApp throughout the day, or maybe husband and wife, and you want to go in a WhatsApp group so that you can both interact at different times. We do all the things that make it better for the client. That's what this is all about. So that's why we're jumping on live on a Friday afternoon when it's sunny, is to help share some advice, some knowledge, some wisdom. And I've really enjoyed this chat, so appreciate it for everyone on the panel. If you are in the Reading area, like I say, make sure you're following Georgina for Woodley and Early. She's always doing Beat the Portals. She's doing her live walks as well. If she's out pushing the pushchair, she likes to go live and throw some random tips out there, which are great to watch out for. If you're in the Tilehurst, West Reading area, make sure you check out Ryan and Lauren. Loads and loads of great information going out there. I think they just did a 3-part series on the top roads and information on the roads. I loved watching that. I was on holiday, but I was checking in and watching those. So go and check those out, see which is the top road in that area. And if you're central Reading, Whitley, that sort of patch, RG1 and in around there, make sure you check out Matt Barrell's page at the Reading Agent. Quality URL for Facebook, Instagram, and I believe TikTok as well. Go and check him out, because there's loads of good content. Matt's great at digesting the portal reports every single month. He goes on and does that live with people, so that's really good. If you're thinking of property investing and thinking of becoming a landlord, then Tristan at the Landlord page, check out the podcast, subscribe to that. Check out the page for Property of the Week, Buy to Let of the Week. He's always throwing those out there as well. And if it's Dan and Neil that you want to speak to find out exactly what's going on in Shinfield, Arborfield and Winnersh, then they love a live video too, whether it's Neil sweeping the doorstep or Dan on a live portal, or just something random with Neil's dog, or just quality property videos, then check out their page as well. So have a cracking weekend, everyone. Anyone got anything else they want to throw in the mix before we wrap up for the afternoon?
All
No,
good
it's
here.
great. Covered a lot.
Good stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone. And we'll be back next month. We'll do this again. We'll see exactly what's going on in the areas. We'll do a follow-up on this month's and talk about anything that's relevant to the property market in 4 or 5 weeks' time. So have a great weekend, everyone.